Welcome back to Blockstream Talk. Today we're speaking with Lisa Neigut, a core Lightning developer who also manages a number of Bitcoin educational projects, including Base58, the world's best Bitcoin protocol school, and Bitcoin Plus Plus, a developer-focused conference series. This is the third part of our recent Lightning series, following up on conversations with Rusty Russell and Christian Decker. I've personally found this series to be very helpful in understanding Greenlight, how Blockstream is working to drive Lightning Network adoption on both the user side and the retailer side, but also how Bitcoin's major layer 2s, Liquid and Lightning, can be used together for an even more powerful product. If you followed this series, you'll notice that there's quite a bit of overlap, and I think it's useful to get the same concepts presented from slightly different perspectives. If you haven't followed the series, I would definitely recommend you go back and check out the conversations with Rusty and Christian. Enjoy the conversation, and if you think there's anything we missed or that you want addressed in future conversations, let us know in the comments below. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Jesse.
Great. So we've done a bit of a series on Lightning recently. We've had Rusty on, we've had Christian on, and we've been wanting to get you on for a couple of years. So it's great to finally have you here today.
Cool. Yeah, I'm glad to be able to join you.
So to start off, maybe you could give us a bit of a background on who you are, what's your background, and what you're working on at Blockstream.
So I work on Lightning. I started at Blockstream in 2018 on the core Lightning team. Before that, I was on the custodial Bitcoin backend team at Cash App over a block company. I started doing Bitcoin stuff in 2018 and joined the core Lightning team that same year. So I've been working on Lightning, on doing spec work and implementations for about 5 years now. All of that at Blockstream. I'm technically on sabbatical from Blockstream right now. I went on sabbatical in January. So trying to take a break to work on getting some more classes and online coursework out, and maybe a textbook about how Bitcoin protocols work, both on the main chain and on Lightning.
Oh, very cool. Definitely want to talk about some of that work today too. But how did you get pulled over to the Lightning Network? What brought you over there, and what were your goals kind of working on that initially?
Yeah, that's a great question. The opportunity to work on Lightning kind of wasn't something I was looking for, but as an opportunity, it kind of came across my desk, so to speak. And I decided that it seemed like a fun new kind of in 2018 or 2018. Lightning had really gotten started. I think they did a mainnet launch in 2017. So I joined maybe a year or less than that after Lightning had been up and running as an actual network. So it seemed like a really kind of cool, fun project, one where I'd get to work on open source software and doing something on, Bitcoin payment rails, which weirdly is something I think I've discovered that I really care about a lot. The ability for people to transact in a peer-to-peer way with no intermediaries, but being able to do it in a way that it makes real online e-commerce possible is really cool and fun. And I think that's kind of the real reason that I was excited about working on Lightning, being able to figure out how that would work for, people that want to sell stuff online.
As a contributor to open source core Lightning, can you maybe, I guess over the last couple of conversations with Rusty and with Christian, we've talked about some of the different implementations. We learned, amongst other things, that Eclair means lightning in French, which is kind of cool. And, can you talk a little bit about what are some of the differentiating features of your implementation, of the core Lightning implementation?
Yeah, so Rusty started it, I want to say, probably back in 2016, a long time ago. And his idea for it would be spec first. So our implementation aims to be the most spec compliant and kind of across the board. We have the most of the specs implemented in the implementation. And it would also be the reference implementation that was written in C, right? So we would have as much stuff that, So we would have a full working Lightning node that is implemented in C and is done as simply as possible with the least amount of bells and whistles. And anytime there's something new that gets added to the spec or proposed, we would be the implementation that would be hopefully on the front lines of helping get that implemented also.
Very cool. And what are some of the challenges you guys have faced while you're developing that?
Yeah, challenges. I think like early on, core Lightning was really focused on spec and spec work and how does Lightning work. And we didn't really focus very much on like how you would build on top of core Lightning. Like, if you're a web dev, how do you interact with a core Lightning node? For a long time, we were like, we don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, figure it out. We got an RPC. You could talk to the RPC over a Unix socket. Like, what do you mean you don't know what a Unix socket is? Please call back later when you figure it out kind of thing. So I think like in terms of challenges, like early adoption was something that core Lightning definitely didn't really spend much time with or on.
Did you even care about that? Was that like your focus or?
Me personally, no, it was not my focus.
Well, I mean the team.
I don't think it was anything we were particularly focused on. We had users and users would give us feedback and would use it and then be like, hey, I need things. So like I think we were pretty responsive to people that were using it, but it wasn't like we need to get 1,000 core Lightning nodes out on the network tomorrow and we need to be the number one platform for building your web app on top of. Like that wasn't things that we were focused on. We were focused on, okay, like, a lot of my early work, I've kind of realized there's like the way to explain what I was working on early on is like a spec update. We've been calling it dual funding, but I realized just kind of this week that there's a better way to talk about kind of what I was focused on. So I was focused on something that I've been calling, I think you could call it Lightning V2. I might get in trouble from people with that, but whatever, I'm going to stick with it. The idea being like, this is like a protocol update to how Lightning works with like on-chain. So like Lightning's relationship with on-chain. We've written a whole new set of protocols that I was helped author and design and then worked with T-Bast over a song kind of on the Claire and Phoenix team to get them into our respective implementations. And that kind of encompasses like I was working on the first phase, which was opening channels in this new V2. So V2 of opening channels, also known as dual funding. That's kind of one of the things that it lets you do is it lets you open channels with money on both sides in it. Revolutionary, I know. And then phase 2 is splicing, which Dustin Detmer has been working on getting implemented in core Lightning for us. And then phase 3 will be splice to close, which we haven't really started working on yet and don't have a spec for. But when those 3 kind of pieces are done, then I think you'll be able to use Lightning. I'm calling it Lightning V2 because it's going to let you be a lot more dynamic with your on-chain funds in a Lightning channel than you are currently. Anyways, so I was working on building out Lightning V2, what I'm now deciding to call Lightning V2.
Should we file a trademark, a kind of a patent or something? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think like, one thing that we struggle with as like Lightning devs is like helping people who aren't in Lightning understand like what we're working on, right? And why it's important and why they should care about it. And like dual funding, just people are like doesn't really people like I don't know what that is. The name of the protocol is Open Channel V2, right? So like it is the V2 protocols, and it's what splicing is built on top of that. So it's like it's V2 of Lightning channel opens and moving money around.
Taking a step back, so if adoption is seen as kind of one of the early challenges, do you think that Greenlight is a possible solution to that?
Yeah. So I don't know how much your listeners know about Greenlight, but really it's like a Lightning node as a service thing, service that Christian Decker and some other brilliant engineers at Blockstream have been working on for a number of years now. So right now, if you run a core Lightning node, you need a computer somewhere that you can download and run it on. It can't be a Windows computer, probably can't be a mobile phone. So you're going to need basically a laptop or preferably some sort of desktop plugged in somewhere that you can put your node on, right? Or you could put it on a server that someone else runs in the cloud, but that's not really something we'd recommend because, it's got keys to funds on it, that sort of thing. Greenlight is like, okay, the number of people that have that set of requirements, right? Like a computer they can put their node on, et cetera, is pretty limited. So Greenlight is like an opportunity for people to run a node in the cloud on hosted infrastructure, but keep their keys on their phone, in their purse, I don't know, somewhere like somewhere that's not like a server in the cloud. So I think like the idea, right, is that Greenlight makes it possible now that like there's suddenly this way that you could have a core Lightning node that's running or backing your application. And then we had a service kind of provider like Breeze come in and build like a SDK on top of it. So now You can have mobile phones and applications that have Lightning nodes associated with them, with much, much less work on the behalf of like the Lightning developer. So I think that Breeze is like the work that Breeze has been doing with their SDK. I think Relay, who's adopted the SDK, Breeze's SDK, has, as far as I've seen, definitely 100% proven the whole, I think, thesis that Greenlight is the way to get more nodes into end users' hands a lot more easily, in an interface that they're used to, like on their mobile phone for the most part, right? So that's a long-winded answer, but like, yeah, I think it has been. But I also think that it kind of proves out that it's not like you can just add like an RP. It's not like you could just add like, oh, you can make app calls to, you can make like RPC calls to your node over HTTP. Really, in order to build accessibility to Lightning infrastructure, you almost need like a couple more pieces, right? Like you need someone who can help manage these nodes. You need another provider that can help manage the liquidity. You need someone else who can help you manage your keys because they're not going to be on those machines anymore. And it's taken a long time for us to get this Greenlight project out the door. I think that's a testament to like all of the work and tooling that needed to be built in all these different layers before we can get to the point where like, okay, now we can have really cool, quick syncing applications that app developers are able to build on. Took us a long time to get there.
So I guess in a nutshell, it kind of lowers the technical and maybe infrastructure entry barrier for people that are interested in using this kind of technology and in whatever they're doing, whether it's video games or anything, something else like that.
So it's in a format that they're used to working with, like an SDK. That's just a library that you make calls to, and it all just works under the hood. You don't have to worry about, is the node up? Will the node be there? What's my backup strategy? Am I able to get gossip, etc.? Yeah.
And then again, as Rusty and Christian have pointed out, that it's non-custodial. So from, if there's regulatory considerations or anything like that, or ethical considerations or security considerations, it seems like a better route on all three of those kind of angles.
Definitely. Yeah. Both for like people who want to build on Lightning such that like, you want to build on Lightning, you want your users to be have custody of those funds because you don't want to be a custodian, right? You being Greenlight, like Blockstream, who runs Greenlight, doesn't want to be a custodian. Breeze, who's helping write the SDK, doesn't want to be a custodian. The app developer who's extending like that application functionality to people doesn't want to be a custodian. We want the custodian to be, the person whose node it is or whose like Lightning funds those are. And Greenlight is like a great way, I think, to get that from like a, kind of like we sort of built what we thought the Lightning app dev experience should be from the ground up. And I think it really shows in terms of like thinking all the way through to like, okay, where's the custody actually?
All right, shifting gears slightly. As an open source developer, what's maybe some advice you would give to other open source developers that are interested in contributing to something like Core Lightning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think like, first of all, I run into people and they're always like, what you're doing is like, it's really out of reach for me. It's too much. It's too hard. Like, I don't know C. I don't know anything about Lightning. Like, how can I, someone who knows nothing and has like no skills, really contribute? And I think that keeps a lot of people from even spending time like looking into it or reading the docs or like trying to set up a node, that sort of thing. We love like the tiniest of contributions mean a lot to us. So that can mean like, oh, I read your docs and I found a typo. Great. We'd love to get a pull request from you. We will like say you helped contribute to making the project better. Open source really kind of depends and thrives when people in the wider community feel a sense of ownership and feel enabled and empowered to like submit changes to the project. So I think that my like advice or whatever would be like, don't get in your own way of contributing, right? Like don't stop yourself from even like beginning.
That's great. And then maybe flipping that question around, what do you think open source projects need to be doing to attract new developers to contribute?
Yeah, I think our docs are like not as pretty. It sounds terrible, but like, open source, especially coming from like the Linux like ecosystem, we're not known for having like nicely formatted and well-designed documentation. Like you go and you look at like a competitor Rise's like Lightning Labs, they have beautiful documents. Like if you go look at like their engineering docs, it's like, it's just like, it's a nice white thing. It's got like a nice color scheme. It's like it's laid out. They exist. They're easy to find. They're in a format that you're used to seeing across like other websites with like written documents, etc. I think that's like from our perspective, from my perspective, I feel like that's really, made it harder for outsiders to figure out what's going on, how to get involved, like where the different parts at, etc. I definitely know there's stuff I've worked on where people like, I get frequently people like, I didn't know that's a thing. Where do I read more about it? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think there is a place you can go read more about it, right? So I think that's something that, if someone wanted to contribute to helping make better, I don't know, document repository or make it prettier, that sort of thing, I think that would be something that we could really use and would also make the project more accessible at the same time.
Yeah, that's interesting. People have always talked about Bitcoin and marketing, and you've seen the word ossification come up quite a bit kind of recently. And doing this podcast, I talked to a lot of people like yourself that are doing really, really interesting things on and around Bitcoin. And it doesn't appear to be a lot of ossification to me, but it's also like as if do you think there's like a marketing effort that needs to be made, or how does that happen where you kind of break through that narrative and that myth?
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. I mean, in fact, this is why I started the Bitcoin Plus Plus. So I run a conference series, like a dev only, Bitcoin only, dev only conference series called Bitcoin Plus Plus. We just did our 4th conference like last month in October. The 4th one in like 16 months. So like in a year and a half, we've done like 4 conferences. The reason I started it is because I felt like even developers didn't know who was working on what and what kind of cool things were happening. And enough devs start to think there's nothing cool happening, they'll leave, even though that's not even true. So 100% think there's a little bit of a marketing like gap between what's happening and who hears about it. My like answer, at least in terms of how to like help socialize information among devs, was to start bringing devs together. I think there's definitely some work that could be done in terms of like, how do we make better and more informative articles available as like press releases? How do we educate the people that are telling people about what's going on? Maybe that's podcasters, maybe that's people that work at Bitcoin or publications. I think the other thing about it is like, what was I going to say? Another aspect of it is that like, I think people do get a little afraid that like they're not going to understand. Like the kind of like there's like layers, right? It's the people working on it, and then there's the people whose job is telling everyone what's going on, like people who work for a media company or people who do podcasts. And a lot of times I feel like I scare people because they're like, "Oh, Lisa's like a core dev. She works on core Lightning things. She like does all these things that are like I feel are very outside of my capacity for understanding," and so they like won't even like start asking questions or like trying to understand what's going on. And I think that like, I don't know how you break that. Like, I don't know how you give people confidence to confidence that they can understand it.
This is literally the feeling I have before every podcast.
Right. Exactly. And so, right. Okay. So like, Jesse, like, how do we like, I feel that's a common experience for a lot of people around these topics. And I don't know how to like encourage people and give them the confidence that these things aren't stuff that's outside of their ability to understand.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer is either, but I do believe a lot of the Blockstream philosophy seems to be built around like learn by doing. And that seems to be the approach that Greenlight has taken. And I think that's probably the right one. We joke around, like Rusty and I, we're joking around about this, and we get this on other podcasts too, about how people never learn about custodying their own assets. It's just this cycle that every cycle people get burnt again. And it's just, there's a lot of things that people need to learn by doing. You know what I mean? And I think that just probably just takes time.
It's true. And you need people that have the ability to go out. Like, so you need people who are out there, like kind of evangelizing and showing and providing opportunities for people to do, right? Because, I think this is a good point. Like, I have this theory that like 95% of people aren't going to learn how to custody their own Bitcoin unless they have a friend who helps them do it. Like, unless you have someone who like gets you together and walks you through setting up like a hardware wallet or like writing the seed phrases down, etc. Like as a friend and as a group and as a community, like you're not going to do it. It is a show thing. It's not a tell thing. And you can't tell someone to go home and like do the 12-word things. No, you have to like do like a Tupperware party where like everyone is like doing it together. And then after people see it and touch it and feel it and have a friend there who's like, let me show you how to do it.
Yeah.
But that makes adoption really slow. It just makes slow adoption.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, Lightning adoption is probably the same too. I can think the first time I did a Lightning transaction and it came, I was like, oh my God, it worked. It's like 1 second. Or when I send when I send liquid tether to Bitfinex from my green wallet and it settles in like 1 second for like a couple pennies, that's like every time is like, that is amazing that works that quickly. So yeah, people need to go through that and do it, and that's that just takes time, I think. So I don't know what to say about that. So that's the tricky thing about the marketing.
It takes time, and I think it does take it takes time and it takes effort, and it takes people who have like the bandwidth to be able to like organize that and bring people in, and it takes people showing up. Like this is my big thing, when I'm like running events or doing classes, it's like I think my own success, like, they say, I think this is a Woody Allen quote, like 90% of success is literally just showing up.
Yeah, yeah.
Showing up to the right place at the right time is like a large part of that. But like, if you're not showing up anywhere.
That's so true. That you have to swing, right? That's so true. I think a lot, I was just talking about this with my wife actually, but a lot of things, it's just like your attitude. You have to maintain positive energy. You have to maintain an open mind and look at things. I think that's such an important kind of just broader life lesson.
Yeah. And I feel like we've seen a lot of people on Twitter sort of like taking swings, like the other kind of swings at lightning, right? Like they're just like being Debbie Downers, like it's not going to work. Like it's just kind of been like the general narrative lately. I feel like some of that is coming out of like, I was told a narrative X about lightning and it hasn't lived up to narrative X. And so now I think it's not going to work, or, at least I can say it didn't do this thing. But I feel like those people probably aren't running their nodes. They probably haven't touched like a wallet, like a mobile wallet lately, like some of the ones that people recommend.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of that out there. I mean, Liquid gets hit with that a lot too. I work at Bitfinex Securities. Certainly Bitfinex and Tether get their fair share of that negative energy, but don't be that guy. Go out and try it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the opposite of showing up. It's like, I don't know, showing up and trying to make sure that no one else comes also. Or it's almost like I feel like they're trying to keep other people from showing up too. And I'm like, okay, that's not welcome. That's not very welcoming energy or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think especially with the stuff that, we're doing at Bitfinex Securities with tokenized securities, the stuff that you're doing on Lightning, the stuff that the guys are doing on Liquid, all of this is trying to build on top of the ecosystem. None of this is scammy or trying to do anything nefarious. We're trying to build on top of Bitcoin and if you're a crypto person, crypto more broadly. So I don't see anything in there that people should be taking shots at. I think everybody should be supportive of this stuff.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's fun. It's cool. It's like fun and cool when it works.
Yes. Yeah, it definitely is. So I wanted to ask more about some of the educational stuff that you said you're working on. What kind of a conference is Bitcoin Plus Plus? Who is that focused at, and what kind of people are participating?
Yeah, so it's a developer conference. It's focused on the Bitcoin ecosystem. Every conference that I run for Bitcoin Plus Plus always has a theme. My joke is like everyone loves a theme party, so I use like the different conferences as an opportunity. And also it's a way to highlight, I think, how big the Bitcoin developer ecosystem is, because every time we run a conference, it's an opportunity to shine a light on a different like part of the industry that people are working on, and really to bring together experts in that like area. In some cases, experts that maybe haven't gotten together and talked face to face in like a long time, which is like really cool and fun. And I think is actually like part of like kind of the renaissance of like dev work and stuff that I think you kind of started or feeling, at least I feel there's more devs coming into Bitcoin than ever, providing them places where they can come and find out about different topics. So we did a layer 2 one in Austin this spring, back in April. It was great. We had a bunch of people talking about rollups. We had Paul Stork talking about drive chains. We had the first world premiere ever, what is now known as ARC. I don't think that Barack had landed on the ARC name, but it was the first conference he ever presented that protocol at. So we had novel new layer 2 protocols at. We had lots of talks on Lightning and splicing and how to build Lightning plugins on core Lightning. So that was just like the layer 2 one. We're going to do one on payments. So Bitcoin payments is our upcoming one, and we're going to be in Buenos Aires. We're going to be the first Bitcoin conference, I think, in Argentina after the election. Yeah, so we're looking to get there's only about 200 tickets. So if you're planning on coming, get a ticket sooner rather than later, because I think we're going to sell out. And that one's going to be focused on Bitcoin and payments and like making payments with Bitcoin. Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? Hoping to get like the Moon team is Argentina local, so I'm hoping they'll be there. So hopefully it'll just be a really good look at like what is it like to make payments on Bitcoin? What are some challenges? What are people working on? And then the Austin one, we're going to have another one in Austin in May, early May. That one's going to be about new scripts, so Bitcoin scripts. So all these new opcodes people are talking about, what should we do? We're going to get hopefully everyone in the same room, and a lot of people that are like trying to build with all these new opcodes and ways of doing Bitcoin script, and get them to talk to each other for the first time and figure out who's working on what, and what efforts are going to be duplicated, what isn't. Robin Linus is going to be there, Super Testnet. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, what another thing that's really exciting, just kind of broadly, is that how much of this payment stuff seems to be happening in emerging markets and not in the global north. I think that's just such a fascinating development. To see El Salvador take off and you can use Lightning, just like, I didn't get outside of San Salvador. To be honest, I didn't get very far from the Hilton, but but it did seem that there was a lot of places where I could use it, which was cool. I mean, and I think that's part of the story, I think, is to help those kind of people that really need it. And I've always been really fascinated how the interest in use in emerging markets differs from places like Europe and Canada and the US.
Yeah, totally. And so I'm hoping we'll be able to see some of that in Argentina.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. What about Base58? Can you talk a bit about that as well?
Sure. Yeah, that's my other, my millionth project, that is about, so like I got into Bitcoin development. I read Mastering Bitcoin. I took Jimmy Song's Programming Bitcoin class. These were both like amazing and great resources. But then I started working on this like dual funding, like the V2 open for channels on Lightning, and realized I had no idea how Bitcoin transactions worked. I didn't know how Bitcoin scripts works. I didn't know what I was doing. There wasn't a lot of information about SegWit or any of this. And so I kind of went through this journey of like implementing a lot of stuff myself, like from scratch, just so I had like a good understanding of how these things worked. So Base58 is my attempt to take like all of that hard work I did on learning all the new stuff and really like build a like, I'm calling it like an engineering school on a Bitcoin standard. So you can come in and you can learn about what are protocols, how do they work, what are the like design decisions that were made in these protocols. It's a hands-on class where you're actually implementing code that will like do stuff at the protocol level by your hand. So, we were talking earlier about like, it's a show don't tell class. It's a class where you show up and you get to put your hands on like, what is a Bitcoin transaction? So that's our Bitcoin developer basics class where we learn all about transactions, and how, some basic crypto works. This year, it's been a busy year. This year we launched a Taproot and a Lightning class. So, so it's an opportunity to come and get your hands dirty on like writing code that like for Lightning, like write a routing algorithm, learn how to parse an invoice, learn how to write like a plugin to do HTLC interceptions. In Taproot class, you write our first like TapScript tree thing, and then we learn how to spend it. We write the Python. We write all the pieces of Python that you need to like make a Schnorr signature and verify it. We do it all in class with Python by hand from scratch. We read the specs, we implement them. It's a very like, I want to learn what it's like to be like an implementation dev, or I want to learn how these things work at just the basic nuts and bolts. You can come get like a guided tour basically with an expert who's does it for you like live, and then you have to do it also.
So is this an online course that people sign up for, or is it something that happens in person, or how does that work?
Yeah, so this year we've been basically doing mostly in person here in Austin. Next year, I'm working on getting my class schedule out for next year. Hopefully we'll have a nice mix of self-paced online classes that are live instruction, plus like in-person opportunities. So hoping to be across like the entire spectrum of ways people learn. I'm also working on a textbook for Bitcoin transactions, which maybe someday will be done. Maybe someday I'll get done with it. So then you'll even have like a book you could read, but we're not, one thing at a time. Maybe for Christmas break, I'll get that done.
One thing at a time. It doesn't sound like you have one thing at a time. It sounds like you've got like quite a bit going on.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's like, it's gotten a little ridiculous, but yeah.
So in a previous podcast, we talked to the guys at Boltz, and they had implemented Lightning and then also Liquid, right? So we've got both of the layer twos. We talked to Rusty about that on Green Wallet recently. What are your thoughts around that? How those two major layer twos interact, and what kind of interesting new use cases that could foster and develop?
Yeah, so I'm actually a little disappointed that there hasn't been more work on making like gateways between Lightning and Liquid. I know that like Boltz has been on the forefront of this and they've done an incredible job, but I feel like there's sort of been a missed opportunity here in terms of um, Lightning works really well and is really, really cost effective whenever you have whenever you're able to connect economic entities that have a lot of exchange going back and forth between them, right? So maybe this is like two exchanges, maybe this is a big vendor and I don't know, a community that like has a bunch of people that are like transacting on a Lightning node or whatever. If you kind of think about it as like Liquid is like a great place to be able to put your money into interesting contracts, invest in securities that have been issued on the platform, hold your balance in Tether, maybe accumulate or stack in a lower fee environment. It's a side chain, it's not main chain. So you can it's easier to stack Bitcoin on the Liquid environment. And then you could use Lightning as like this interoperability layer that lets you use your Liquid Bitcoin that you've accumulated or move it around between different services really fast and really cheaply. So I think that kind of swap service, I mean, it's also really handy for people that want to swap balances. I think like there was the PeerSwap project to like make it such that you could swap between an on-chain Lightning, an on-chain Liquid balance and moving funds in a Lightning channel. So it's just kind of a way that you can like stack Bitcoin in a cheap way so you don't have to pay the on-chain fees. I think that that's like a really powerful thing. I think we've seen Fedi kind of do this also. So like they know that like, when you have an eCash federation, like a Fediment, every website that you go to isn't going to implement the ability to accept any random federation's eCash, right? Liquid, maybe websites will be able to accept Liquid because that's a little bit of a bigger network, but in general, it's probably more likely that they'll implement being able to accept the Lightning payment, right? So it's really cool that you could like hold your balance maybe in USDT in a Liquid wallet, and then be able to pay Lightning invoices using a Liquid balance. So that kind of swap possibility, I feel like, kind of helps unify all these different kind of like places that you can hold and store and exchange Bitcoin, while having this sort of like Lightning universal interface that you can use to make payments to other people.
Lightning and Liquid are the major layer twos for Bitcoin, but as I understand it, there's more layer twos that are currently under development. And you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, Arc. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Arc is an effort by Barack and I think he's got a bigger team working with him now, but he was the one who came up with this protocol. My understanding is that, Lightning does have this limitation in that anytime you take Lightning liquidity, so like any Bitcoin, and you put it in a Lightning channel, it basically becomes a contract between two different parties, right? So if you want to have like a network of different people, you need a lot of 2-to-2 kind of pools of liquidity that get locked up and then are reserved just for those two parties' use. So this becomes inefficient at scale in certain aspects. So Arc is a proposal of, okay, how do we take some of the best of what Lightning offers in terms of being able to exit that layer 2 and go back to layer 1 without having to ask permission? How do we do that in a way where we also can get kind of economies of scale because all of us are sort of living, so to speak, in the same pool of collected Bitcoin on the main chain, right? So how do you lock up more liquidity into a single like on-chain Bitcoin contract, so in like one UTXO or like just like so to speak, and then have a protocol that lets lots and lots and lots of people hold basically claims to that Bitcoin in a way that they could still go to chain with their claim and not have to ask permission from anyone else who's in that collective pool with them, so to speak. So that's like that's the goal. It makes it such that there's the ability for me to take a ARC, basically like asset, like an ARC. They call them VTXOs basically, but it's like a claim to Bitcoin that's like locked into an ARC contract. How do I take that claim for that ARC value? It's really easy for me to take that claim and reassign it to someone else, like maybe my butcher or someone who's selling me stickers, like a sticker printer or something. Like I need to buy something, I can easily send them an ARC asset without them having to set up a channel like they have to do in Lightning, find inbound liquidity such that I can send them a payment, etc. So I think that's like the general project of what they're attempting to accomplish with Arc.
Arc initially will be done as a proof of concept on top of Liquid. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah, that's what Barack said in a tweet a few days ago, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is very cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, it's new. And so the reason that they're building their initial prototype on Arc. The reason that they're building the first initial prototype of Arc on Liquid. And the reason that they're doing that is because Liquid has some opcodes that the main chain of Bitcoin does not have. So when you think about opcodes, my favorite way to compare them to is like, I think most people have maybe used Excel and have used like Excel functions like sum or, you can add two things together. Those are kind of like, so Excel functions, imagine like an Excel worksheet that didn't have like a sum function. You would have to like add up all the cells together. That would be a lot of work, right? Excel functions are kind of exactly like what an opcode is for Bitcoin and for Liquid. So when Liquid got shipped, it came out, it has more opcodes, more like Excel functions, if you will, than main chain Bitcoin does. Because it has all these additional opcodes, the prototype for Liquid can be built in a way that lets them kind of build like the best version that they imagine could exist. They're using some of these opcodes do something called covenants, which I have a hard time talking about. But basically, it'll let them prototype a version of Arc, which is fast, easy, and like they say like non-interactive. So like basically with like it'll let, so like by using Liquid and using some of those opcodes or basically new functions that's available there, they'll be able to build a version of Arc that's exactly how they like pictured it, or is it like they wanted it to be, right? And then after they have the best version of Arc that you could possibly have working, they'll be able to like ship that, get people interacting with that, figure out where there's problems, where there's like things that they need to prove out, etc. Still. So that's my understanding of why they're building it on Liquid, which is pretty cool.
That is a really good explanation. Your Excel analogy, I think, is very, very good. I like that. I feel like I understand. This is a rare moment for me. That's great.
Right. Well, like it's like, yeah, but it's like you can't, if you have to use the plus sign instead of just being able to say sum, right? You're not going to be able to build the best and most efficient project on that version of Excel. So they're using the new souped up version of Excel, which is the Liquid contracts, because they have stuff that they need over there.
That's great. I got it. I got it. All right.
Great,
So,
yeah.
So talking about Lightning Network adoption, we're speaking with Rusty about this one as well. So we've had a lot of price volatility with Bitcoin over the last 2 years, but the adoption in terms of the amount of Bitcoin that's on the Lightning Network has just been up and to the right. So adoption looks like it's going really, really well. What are you looking forward to in Lightning in terms of scalability and mainstream adoption?
What am I looking forward to in terms of mainstream adoption? So I have to admit, my focus recently, so like with all these projects that I've been doing, a lot of them involve selling things to people. I sell conference tickets, I sell Bitcoin classes, I sell classes through Base58. I'm working on another project with a friend, which hopefully will get launched by early next year, where we'll be selling even like smaller things. So like I think a lot about Lightning adoption from the vendor perspective. Like I want to sell something. I want people to pay me directly. I don't want to send some percent of my money to Shopify. I don't want to have to wait until they pay me out. I want my money right now. I want peer-to-peer electronic cash on the internet for stuff that I'm selling you right now, if that makes sense. Like I want that money coming, and I don't want to have to use I want it coming directly from your node to my node, right? Like I want that money self-sovereign. Like, I don't want any intermediaries. Like, I want that money to me, from you to me. That's the vision of like e-commerce that I think we should be building towards. So I've been working on like, how do I get my core Lightning node? What do I need to like fill that gap between checking out a website and you sending your money directly to my node, basically. So I'm really excited. about adoption on the vendor side. Like I am excited about businesses being able to run their businesses and having the tools that they need to run their businesses in a self-sovereign manner. And maybe that means they're able to like, I mean, imagine a world where you can set up a website. I don't know exactly how, Handwave. Let's say you put your website on some service, whatever. But imagine there's like a web app, you have like a phone app, which maybe is running Greenlight, but the keys are on your phone. And every time there's a sale on the website selling like, I don't know, let's say you're selling t-shirts, or the Blockstream store sells stickers, right? Initially. Let's say you're selling stickers that you've made, something that is yours to sell. Someone can check out on that website. And when they check out, that money goes directly to your mobile phone. Like it goes directly to your Greenlight phone, and it automatically like marks it as paid. And there's like this amazing checkout thing. And there's no one between that person that wanted to send you the money and that node that's like on your phone and getting it. And so what does it take? What do you need in order to get that experience? Like I'm super excited about all the stuff we've built on Core Lightning, on the few things that I'm kind of working on right now to be able to kind of patch that gap for myself. All the bookkeeping functionality that we've added to Core Lightning that we're going to hopefully get some nice dashboards on that'll make running a business, tracking your invoices, seeing how much you've made across your node, both through like routing fees as well as on chain costs, like total cost of ownership of a Lightning node, just like a place that you can like see it, etc. So like, yeah, I get really excited about like, man, you can just like do like basically ECAT, like cash payments, like peer-to-peer payments digitally, and you don't need credit cards. We don't need middlemen. We can like just make it happen. And we're super close to that. So I get really excited about that.
All right. Okay. Taking a step back a little further, what are you most excited about just generally? Because you're working across so many different things. What are you most excited about generally, just broadly in the world of Bitcoin, whether it's education or Lightning or something else that we haven't touched on today?
I'm excited about more people finding out about how Bitcoin works and that they can use it and that it is something that is like interesting and applicable to their lives as a tool, right? People talk about Bitcoin as an investment. People talk about Bitcoin as savings technology. I think those and those have definitely found their audience, right? But I'm excited about Bitcoin being a part of people's like workflow, so to speak, and how they sell and how they buy and how they transact with other people. And I think that's like kind of, in my mind, like one of the more interesting frontiers of Bitcoin, like going forward. And helping people understand that is like across like, okay, how can we build tools where they can sell things with it, and they can see for themselves the benefit of not paying fees to other people to process payments, right? On the education side, that's like, how can I help people touch and experience and learn how Bitcoin works so that they're like contributing back to helping make that a tool that they feel like they're enabled to like build on and interact with, etc. So yeah, I think we're on the precipice of more people really understanding how Bitcoin works. And I want to make it, I think across Base58, software I build, etc. I want to make people more confident in their ability to understand Bitcoin, right? Like, I don't think it's all new. There's nothing else in the world like Bitcoin. There's like the protocol doesn't look like anything else I've ever seen. And I've seen most of the different types of tech that exist, it's like completely novel. But I think that means there's a new opportunity to like help people understand how it works, right? And so I get really excited about like, oh my gosh, so many people are going to learn about how Bitcoin works in this decade. And that's exciting because I think hopefully that'll be an empowering thing for every person that spends the time getting to know how the tools work, how to move it, how to use it, but also like how it works at like the base layer.
That's great. And where should people go if they want to learn more about your various endeavors?
Great question. I don't have a single answer to. If you want to check out our websites, it's at btcpp.dev, or you can do BTC Plus Plus and spell it out .dev. And then for Base58, we're at base58.school, I think. Let me double check that. I think it's BASE 58.school. I would send you to my I would send you to my Twitter because I tend to tweet a lot of stuff there. Yeah, it's Base58. That's cool. But I'm about to log off Twitter for the month, so that's not a great place to go. So.
Well, I really appreciate the time today, Lisa. It's a conversation 2 years in the making, but I think it was definitely worth the wait. So very happy to have finally had you on the show. And thanks a lot for the time today.
Cool. Thank you.